This week we were covering data for information systems, and for this discussion we'll talk about different data types and how they can apply to business data. So data types, which are sometimes referred to as structures, can include primitive data structures and non-primitive data structures, or also referred to as collections. So going back to the primitive data structures, there are four types, and I'll give the types and a brief content of them is integers, which is numeric data as whole numbers; float, which is integer numbers with a also represented with a decimal; and then strings, which is a collection of alphabets, words, and other characters; and then Boolean, which are your true and false values. And then you have the collections, and like I said, non-primitive data structures. And they're basically broken down to arrays. And using Python example, since that's the programming language we've been covering for all this unit, all this course, understand it does not have built-in support for arrays, but it uses an object called lists. And so these lists, they can be used to store multiple values in a single variable. So, and also understand Python is an object-oriented programming language. So to go along with the collections or the non-primitive data structures, it utilizes a reusable code, that is blueprinted in what is called classes. And it will define the attributes that characterize the objects that we talked about earlier, that is arrays. And so the object itself is an occurrence example of these classes that is to be used in the code. So to move forward and understand how it can be applied to business data, especially with the list object, is you're able to group data for access or be able to manipulate it or customize it to draw in whatever data you're trying to retrieve. Especially useful for analyzing a project or building on your project by collecting the amount of data that's used in order to determine if your project's going to be effective with the data. You can cross-reference information against specific objects to see what works best for you when it comes to the data. So, and those are just a couple things. So this is a brief video. I'm not too familiar with Python. I'm learning a lot about it right now, just doing the research. So other things that I have seen that, especially with Python, is good for business data. It cross references across other languages like C or C++, which is other popular languages when it comes to building data structures for business and their collection types. So please review, give me some constructive criticism, and thank you.